Hi, this is Ibarionex from the Candid Frame, and today I want to talk to you about the size of your subject. One of the things I'm often talking about when I teach street photography is about getting closer to your subject. A lot of people, when they start out shooting on the street, they're usually shooting from a very comfortable distance, maybe 12 or 15 feet away, and they're not really taking into consideration all the other things that are in the frame, and their subject gets lost in all the stuff in the background or the foreground that's beside them. And even though they may be really focused on something interesting that the subject is doing, all these other elements that are in the frame just end up weakening the composition. Well, I want to do sort of the opposite of that today. I want to talk about photographs in which the photographers seem to be very aware of the entire frame, about the entire scene, and they include a human element. The human element is surprisingly small, but nevertheless really important to the success of the photograph. And it's kind of antithetical to a lot of things that we often hear about street photography, about get closer, get closer, get closer. Sometimes pulling back is actually the most advantageous thing to do. So let's jump into the images that we have today. Here's this image by Alex Gorshov. He made this with a Fuji X100S at a shutter speed of 1/250th of a second at f5.6 ISO 200. Now let's take a look at the scene first. I mean, it's a very interesting scene. He takes advantage of the high contrast light that exists in this scene, and also how the light seems to cut through this street, or this kind of almost like an alley, and how the light selectively hits the middle of the street, the signage here on the left. We get this nice light here that provides a reflection of the sky on the hood of the car. You get it here on the windshield, and this contrast guides us towards the center of the frame. You see all this area that's sort of dark here? Well, our eyes are automatically being led to the brightest area of the frame, which is right here. So we have this water here that's reflecting some of the sky here, so it's really, really bright. The overall composition, I think, works really, really, really well here, because we have these vanishing point sort of a composition in which these lines that even exist here on the crosswalk are guiding us towards the center of the frame. And there we get to see this human figure, which helps complete the shot. Imagine this photograph without the human figure. It would just be an overall shot of this particular scene. There would be some interesting light, some interesting shadow, but the shot would not be complete. It's only that human figure, who's very, very small within the entire context of the frame, that helps complete and really makes the shot. But more importantly, I think that Alex here is being very conscious of what he's doing with the entire frame. A lot of people might just see that person walking down the street, but they may not pay attention to what's happening here with the reflection, or happening with the sky, or even the light hitting this signage here on the crosswalk, all of which is really critical for the success of the shot. Think about that. Think about how these photographers are really paying attention to the entire frame when they make the composition, and how they allow their subject to provide either the gesture or that telling moment, or that point of contrast that elevates the shot from just a snapshot into something really interesting. Here's a shot by Kevin Balance. We don't have any XF information on this. This is a boy swimming in a pool, and all you see is his legs. But I like what's happening overall with this composition. There's really a very strong graphic sense with this image. You have these very strong horizontal, diagonal, and vertical lines that are happening throughout the frame. You get the fence and these strong graphic lines that are happening here. You have the light and the way it casts this shadow here onto the wet concrete, and we have this bright area here, and then we have this bright area here in the pool. And one of the great draws here is the fact that not only is this area here pretty bright relative to the fence and the shadows and even the mountains in the distance, but also it possesses the greatest degree of color saturation. And if you remember from my discussion of the 5 visual draws in other videos, that color saturation is really something that draws our eyes like a magnet. And here we have all these muted colors, all these sort of dull earth colors, except of course for the blue sky. But this blue and this red stripe, and even the red of the trunks of the boy diving into the pool, just grab our attention, even though we're not seeing his face or overall half of his body. It's a really interesting shot for that reason. But again, think about this shot without the boy. Think about it just as a setting. Yeah, you would have these elements that I just mentioned that make it an interesting shot in terms of line, in terms of graphic, but it's the gesture of the feet that make the shot. And even though the subject isn't taking up very much of the frame, it's still enough to elevate the shot from just being an ordinary shot of this scene and this pool. Before I go on, I want to let you know that I'm going to be teaching a workshop through LACP, the Los Angeles Center of Photography, formerly the Julia Dean photo workshops, and it's April 25th, and it's going to be a one-day workshop, and I'll be taking people through downtown Los Angeles. We'll be starting at the LACP offices in Hollywood, and then we'll be taking the metro downtown to spend some hours shooting, and then we're going to return to the center to actually critique some of the images that we shot during the day. So it really provides you an opportunity to not just enjoy a photo walk, but to have an opportunity to get your work and the work of others critiqued and really learn the complete process from beginning to end. So if you're in the Los Angeles area during that weekend and you're interested, visit the Los Angeles Center of Photography and sign up for the course, and I'll have a link for it in the show notes. Now here's a shot by James Catterson. This was shot with a Sony ILCE7, and it was shot at 80th of a second at f8 ISO 100. And again, just take a look at the overall shot. You have this, what could serve as an architectural shot where we have the repeating patterns of the walls, the stairway, the railing, and the shape of this wall over here. Graphically, fascinating shot, and I really like the play of light and shadow that happens throughout the image. But think about this again without this human figure there. It would just be a nice, interesting architectural shot, nothing to write home about. Nice graphically, but it would be missing a little something. And this human figure here that's doing this really interesting gesture at the top of the stairs just completes the shot. And again, the subject is so small relative to everything else that's in the frame. You could say you could almost miss him, but you don't, because he's juxtaposed against this white wall here. So he becomes the greatest point of contrast in the entire composition. And again, we were talking about in the 5 visual draws about brightness, about contrast, about color saturation, pattern, all of those things that help guide the human eye to certain areas of the frame. Well, that's what's happening here. Though we don't have the benefit of color, we definitely have the benefit of contrast. And that contrast between that wall and that figure with that wonderful gesture helps draw our eye to this, the most important element in the shot. The rest of this stuff, even though it dominates the frame, doesn't take away from this. It adds to it. And in this case, the photographer is really taking into consideration the entire scene. He may have seen this person here doing whatever they were doing at the top of the stairs, but they were also conscious of everything else that was happening in the frame, and made for a really interesting photograph. Here's a shot by Masum Khan. This was shot with a Nikon D7000 shot at 1,000th of a second, f5.6, ISO 160. Now you got this cloudy day, and you have this beautiful set of clouds up in the sky. You have this water here. You have these dark tones here, and in and of itself, it could be a pretty interesting landscape. There's not much of a mountain range there, but I love it because of the explorations of tones that are happening here. But again, if you took a look at the shot without the cows and without the man, it would be a sort of an okay landscape image, just because there really is no point of focus. As much as I like the clouds and the way the water texture is revealed in the shot, and the contrast between this dark area here and this sort of gradations of gray in the background, it would be a shot where something was missing. But it's not, because we have the form of these cows and this human figure here who has this stick in his hand, and he's sort of just leaning in it and creating a body language and a gesture that I think is very, very interesting. His body is really well defined, as is the bodies of the cows that are to his left. And those cows and that man, again, they make the shot. And it's amazing how in so many of the shots that we're looking at, that it makes or breaks the photograph. And you would think that, a subject or an element that is so small, how can it make such a difference in the shot? But we're seeing over and over and over again how it makes a complete difference, because it provides that little flourish, that sort of accent that's often needed to elevate the shot into something really, really extraordinary. Everything about this shot works for me in terms of tones and overall composition. But without this, even without the man here, I mean, if we just had the cows, I think it would still be okay. But it's something about that gesture that's so unique, so interesting, so captivating, that helps complete the shot for me. And lastly, we have this shot by Matej Vinko. We have no XF information here. And this reminds me of a shot of Cartier-Bresson, who shot this shot of these kids playing through this broken wall. I love the way he uses the entire frame. He's using the pattern and the frame within the frame within the frame. We have this figure in the background that's walking towards the left. And if that were just the only thing here, the shot would be okay for me. Even though it's building on this nice repetition of pattern, and it's including that really small figure that we keep talking about in all the other shots, the figure alone walking in the background wouldn't make it for me. It's the presence of these two kids here that are looking through this frame in his direction that make the shot for me. I think it's the combination of these three in that frame that make it. Imagine if you just shot this shot without any human figures in it. It would just be an exploration of pattern, a repetition of pattern, of shape, of light and shadow. Wonderful. But, we're often trying to look for shots that other people haven't taken before. We want something that's unique to our own way of perceiving the world and perceiving a scene. And that demands a lot of the photographer, and often demands a lot of patience and waiting for the right elements to enter the frame. And I think that Matej here just did just that. I think that the convergence of those three figures, combined with everything else that he's doing in the composition, just makes for a really lovely, lovely photograph. So again, I hope you like these videos. I see so many people signing up for the Flickr group, so I take it that you are. And I welcome all your contributions to the Flickr group, and submit images, and please converse with each other and compliment each other on the images that you really like, and tell people why. There's only so many images that I can get to in these weekly videos, so there's no way I can possibly get to everyone who's contributing to it. We have well over 1,500 people already in this photo group, but it's a great opportunity to find other people who are passionate as you are about making photographs and creating a dialogue with yourself. We have people here from all over the world, and it provides a really unique opportunity for us to share our passion for photography. So if you like what you're seeing here, please subscribe. And if you've never heard of the Candid Frame, and this is your first time discovering us, go to thecandidframe.com, and there you'll find the podcast in which I interview well over 280 photographers, I think, at this point, all from all genres of photography, sharing their passion and their love and their experience of photography with you. So thanks again for joining me, and I will see you next time.